If I were to ask you, what is your plan to grow your practice this year? What would you say? Most practice owners I talk to say something like, well, I want more patients. Well, that's not really a plan. That's a wish. And wishes don't fill schedules. Here's what I've noticed after working with many healthcare professionals all across Michigan and beyond. The practices that are struggling to grow aren't struggling because they're bad clinicians. They're struggling because they're operating on a somewhat vague idea of, I want more patients, without an actual strategy to get there. And there's a big difference between the two. A goal, which could include a measurable objective and a timeline, tells you where you want to go, but a written growth strategy tells you exactly how you're going to get there, step by step, week by week. Here's a pattern that shows up more often than you might expect. A physician, 6 years into the practice, sharp, deeply committed to her patients, she hit a wall. Not a skills wall, not a passion wall, but a growth wall. Each year she worked harder, and each year her new patient volume stayed stubbornly flat. It was not for a lack of ambition. She had goals, good ones, written right there on a sticky note attached to her monitor, but somewhere between writing them down and actually growing the practice, something was critically missing. When someone finally asked the right question, what specific steps are you taking this week to move toward that goal? The answer wasn't there. Not because she didn't care deeply about her future, but because she had never translated her goal into an actual strategy. A written, structured, week by week plan that told her exactly where to focus and what to do next. Once a simple 90-day written growth plan was put into place, everything changed. Within a single quarter, her new patient volume climbed by as much as 30%. The goal did not change. The commitment did not change. Only one thing changed. The gap between intention and execution was finally closed. This is the difference between a wish and a plan. And it is the exact gap that the right strategy, the right messaging, and the right digital presence can bridge for your practice. Here's the distinction I want you to see. A goal says, get more patients. It's a destination. It's important. But by itself, it's not actionable. A written growth strategy says, here's who my ideal patient is. Here's how many new patients I need per month to hit my revenue target. Here are the 3 marketing channels I'm going to focus on. And here's what I'm doing every week to move the needle. That's what separates a growing practice from a stagnant one. And here's the part that surprises most practice owners that I will work with. This doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be a 40-page business plan. A good written growth strategy for a private practice can fit onto a single page. The key word is written, because something that lives in your head is a thought. Something written down is a commitment. When you have a written strategy, 3 things happen that don't just happen with a goal. First of all, you make faster decisions. Because when an opportunity comes up, you can ask, does this fit my strategy? And if yes, then you act. If no, you move on. 2, your team gets aligned. When your front desk, your billing coordinator, your MA, when everyone knows what you're working toward and what their role is in getting there, your entire practice moves in the same direction. 3, you stop reacting and start leading. A written strategy puts you in control of your practice's growth instead of just responding to whatever the week throws at you. That's the difference between a busy practice and a growing one. If you've been running on a goal and wondering why you're not breaking through, this may be your answer. You don't need more effort. You need a strategy. and I'd like to help you build one. If you would like to connect with me, even for just 20 minutes, we could begin to map out what a 90-day written growth strategy looks like for your specific practice. I'm offering you a no charge, no obligation consultation. Reach out to me anytime. My contact information you can see in the lower left-hand corner. My name is Kurt Landreth, and I look forward to meeting with you again very soon.